Alright, your cotton's all set. It's set overnight, it's dry, and it should look gloriously spooky. Yeah, hopefully. If it doesn't, well, do a little more work to it. It's not going anywhere, and it does dry and harden pretty rapidly. But at this point, you've probably noticed that you've been touching this thing the entire time with mache paste, cottony soaked hands, and consequently, the dry bottle has got, well, a layer to it, let's say. The next step, and this is, well, I want to say it's optional, but I always do it. I like to get that crusted layer of mache paste, at least for the open areas, cleaned off. So just a basic kitchen scrub brush and a little bit of water. Warm water, not warm water, doesn't really matter. This stuff cleans off so easy. And just find yourself a spot and give it just a quick once over. If you have tiny filaments in there, it really shouldn't matter. Just try not to scrub through them and move them around. If you can and you think ahead of time, as I currently just didn't. A little bit of paper towel, or even a spare cotton ball. And you can wipe any of that extra crud clean from your bottle. If you want the bottle to have an exceptionally dirty look, well, you don't have to do this step. I just always do, because I like the light to travel relatively unhindered through my bottle. Any areas where I have intentionally put some scuzz, like this spot right here, I laid this whole cotton scuzz piece on. I don't want to strip that stuff off. So I'm just going to dip my scrub brush, squidge out the extra bit of water, and I'm going to just run this very quickly over and around it. I'm not looking to remove the stain and the dirtiness, but I just want to get the extra mache paste off the glass. Some of your cotton fibers may start to float around when you do this. That is fine, and it always happens. Just leave them there and let them reharden, which they will do within a few moments. This really does not do much more than eliminate the scuzz on the glass. The actual cotton fibers will reestablish themselves very rapidly. Okay, now your bottle's all cleaned up for the most part, except for any areas that you wanted intentionally dirty. And all we should have on the inside is our nice cloudy water, plus all of our good, nasty root structures on the outside. It's at this point that we are going to awaken the evil with some wood stain. Let's chat about wood stains. You can stain your bottle any stain you want. If you want your bottle to be red, pick a red stain. If you want it to be dark, pick a dark stain. If you want it to be black, I wouldn't recommend it. Just flat out. It's too dark. It's good to have color contrast with this sort of stuff. The one I've used for most of my things, which looks like this when you get okay lighting, yeah, that's not too bad, is a special walnut stain. So if you're looking for a starter stain and you want to emulate this effect, look for special walnut. If you don't care about what I'm doing and you want to do your own thing, please do your own thing. Other stains that look very good are the dark walnut. I really don't care about the brand. I'm not advocating any of these guys. They're all as good as you can. Get what you can afford. My first one I got from a dollar store. This one here was done in the dark walnut stain. And it is, well, darker. Of course, if you're like me, you're not content with either one. So I took a whole bunch of special walnut and I mixed it with some of the dark walnut, and then I thinned it out a little bit with some mineral spirit so it would creep into all the cracks very well. And that was mostly for the Wytch orb project, which will be my next tutorial, but my combined stain is what I'm using for this one, so it all works. Suffice to say, pick your stain of choice. Try not to get it all over you. Just giving this one a little stir up. When I stain, I like to use a nice, fairly soft bristled brush so that I can get down into cracked areas. And as opposed to painting, when I'm trying to deliver and cover areas, with staining, particularly of this stuff, I find what I'm really trying to do is just dip my brush in the stain and then deliver that dollop of stain to the cotton witchwood here. The stain will then seep into it and spread of its own accord. So I don't really have to spread it myself. I'm just trying to deliver large dollops to the project. The only area where I find that I actually have to brush on is some of the finer tips of the branches. In any of these areas where I've got little bits of dirtiness, I don't want huge dollops of stain down here. So I'll add my dollop in the larger area, and then I'll brush down into the cruddy areas. Now, stain is going to go onto your clear glass. It's going to drip down. This is to be expected and not worried about. Later on, what I will tend to do is, if I don't like the look of it, I will grab myself a Q-tip. I'll find those areas where stain's dripping down, or I'll find areas where stain's just gotten everywhere, and I will just vigorously rub that Q-tip in there, and the stain will get pulled off. It will not adhere very well to that glass at all, and you'll clear up your glass with that. But let's bring the evil out of this thing, shall we? I lied. Let's open this can horribly and get covered in stain first, shall we? Okay, we're lucky. It's okay. Let's fast forward, fast forward. Here we go. Alright, I'm going to try very hard to try to get you guys a close-up bit on the staining and how this tends to move and work without, number one, getting stain all over everywhere, or turning the white spots on my black and white cat kind of brownish. So the general maneuver is to get a whole bunch of stain on your brush, find a spot on your project that needs the stain, and just add it to it and let the stain seep. The stain will go where it needs to go. You don't need to brush around. There we go. Let's tilt this towards the camera. There we go, balancing act. And keep it on there. Be also prepared. Any objects that you have put into your witchwood are going to get stain on them. If they are anything that can absorb stain, they will absorb stain. The wooden discs that I have in this project absorb the stain, and they were intended to, so no problem there. But think about it ahead of time. If this is something that will absorb stain and you don't want it getting darker, maybe you want an actual bone fragment in there, bear in mind when you're staining it's going to absorb stain and you may need to paint it white a little bit afterwards. My skull here did have that problem as well. When I was doing the initial staining, it got stained. This was a brown skull. I had to go back over it and dry brush certain parts with some white to bring it back up to color. Another quick area to consider is, as you're going along with your staining, there's going to be a lot of nooks and crannies. There's going to be spaces here that you've got to bring your brush over around and really tuck in to get to the side. You want to get as much exposure as possible. Be prepared for those. And also, after you go through your staining the first time and you let it dry overnight, you're going to want to go back through on day 2 and just have a quick little look around your project from different angles and make sure you didn't miss any spots that will tick you off too much. There's some folks who will be using these on Halloween night, and it's, quite frankly, this may be in the dark the entire time. Kids are going to look at this and go, oh wow, scary, spooky, glowing bottle. Oh wow. They're never going to be like, hey, you missed a spot behind the gem right there. What the hell? You suck, mister. You suck. Nobody's going to do that, okay? Make sure it's up to your standards, but be aware it can be easy to miss little patches inside the twisty turns. Another fact to consider, if you do have a spot where you put a huge blot of stain on there and it really drips and dribbles down and you're worried that might not come out with a Q-tip and a little bit of scrubbing, just take your brush while it's still a little bit wet and just thin it out a bit so that when you do come back to it later on, it's not as big and thick of a blotch to clear out. It's easier to plow through a thin layer than it is a good drip streak. So thin out any spots that you think might be problematic later on. Well, I haven't done the top because I need to be able to hold this thing in order to bring it over to take a look at. But here's the ultimate effect of the witch wood. And this method can be applied to the swamp bottle technique that's on many a YouTube video and really all sorts of stuff. You could use this on scarecrows, and it's really virtually always the same technique. You just take your cotton, saturate it, put it on, and it gives you this beautiful twisted wood look. Now, because of the nature of the video, normally I would do the top, then I would mount the light. But I'm really anxious for this tonight and having a lot of fun with it. So I kind of want to put the light under it, deal with the cat, and then paint the top and leave it on a note so we can turn this light on and enjoy it as I fade on out. Putting the light under this is very, very simple, especially if you're using one of these little puck lights, because again, as I demonstrated, this thing just goes right on the floor. They go straight on the floor with no effort whatsoever. It is amazing how fast they fall on the floor. Okay, we're going to take our little floor magnet here and on these bottles again. They do go right up underneath. The trouble is holding them there. There's lots of ways to do it. In my earliest experiments, I used to take pieces of Velcro and cardboard. I'd make these elaborate little bits that stuck up and in. That is fine. You can find ways to do it. The easiest way that I have found is to go to your local dollar store, get yourself a pool noodle for $1. Then get yourself some sort of cutting contraption. You can use a box cutter, but the folks at Hot Wire Foam Factory have been very good to me. So I'm going to use one of their 4-inch little hot knives. And all you're going to do, for me, depending on the size of your pool noodle, I cut out 2 little sections, which are about as tall as my puck light. I'm just going to eyeball it here. 1, 2. Each section needs a spot cut into it so you can open it. your pool noodles may vary in size, and your wine bottles may vary in size. So this may not work for everything. But with this size of pool noodle, and I would hazard a guess that this particular one is about 3 inches across. So this is the cheapest type of dollar store pool noodle that I know of. Hey, there's a little label on it. The label tells me nothing, which is a bad augury label. You take your 2 open sections, you fit it together into a little funky S shape. This thing will compress down into a shape that will hold and apply tension to the walls of the cardboard structure at the bottom of the wine bottle. So, if this thing were dry, I'd be grabbing it easily and happily. It's not. So I'm going to just grab it by the bottom here. And this will help let me demonstrate it. And then I'm just going to wedge my foam in there. And that should hold perfectly well. And not come out. Simple, easy, and cheap. Now I'm going to paint the top. And we're going to talk about the cool lighting options that you've got with this, assuming you use this method. Alright, the bottle's all stained and it's in good shape. At this point, if you've used the same type of light that I had, or if you used any other type, you're ready to give it a light. Again, I usually let it dry first, but hell with that. It's all ready to go. Let's have some fun. So there is the Wytch bottle with some cool gems in there. Different lights will give you different options. This one has, well, currently it's on its flash setting. Nope, that's its smooth setting. Let's set it to fade. But there ultimately is the Wytch bottle project. The final step, which I will do in the next little segment, is go through. I've got a lot of spots here where I've got wood stain that is just near and around the Wytch wood parts. And to be perfectly honest, cleaning it off is entirely optional. If you like the dirty, grungy look that it's got, leave it. It is not going to be a problem. Quite frankly, over many years of handling it, bringing it in and out of Halloween displays, this stuff is going to wear off anyways. It does not stick to glass itself particularly well. But if you want to, grab yourself about 4 or 5 Q-tips and just rub it off. It will pop right through. And then you've got your bottle. And depending on the light you picked, you can change the color to be whatever you happen to want it to be. Different lights will react differently, and especially if you put any kind of colored gem in it, those gems will react differently with the lights as well. Let's do a quick voice activated, I don't know if I can say this on YouTube, so we're going to be hesitant. Alexa, turn off craft light. Let's see if we can get a light modulation. But under blue light here, my red gem, which obviously you guys can't see, and I will scuzz up my hands a little bit. Let's see if that's a little clearer. Under blue light, if you have red gems, they will go quite dark. Same with green light. However, if you have a yellow light, that red gem is going to illuminate quite brightly. Red's just going to foster red, but different colored gems and glass in there will reflect different colors of light as it transits through them. In fact, let's just set it to a fade, and you can have a quick look at that. So decide what color lighting works best with your haunt. And the great thing about these pucks is they do a gazillion colors, so you don't have to pick. But next scene of the tutorial, I'm going to go back through, clean this all off, and then talk about Do you have to seal it or not? No, I'm going to talk about that now. You don't, in my opinion, have to seal this unless you really think that your witch bottle is in danger of getting massively, massively rained on, or catted on, who is meowing in the background. Either of those two things. And you could take a urethane stain and a paintbrush, go through, once again, you got to get the little nooks and crannies. You got to get the extra urethane off the glass. It may not look so good. I have not sealed any of mine because I do not anticipate them being out in the rain. Of all the times he picks. So, you could seal it. You don't have to seal it. That's the project. I'm going to clean this up, show you the final finished bottle when this is completely all set and dry, and we're going to call it good. And then we'll have a small segment on how to attach certain other parts, since I have a feeling if I don't, I'm going to get deluged with comments on how did you make the skull bottle? I also want to raid the local dollar store. It's August as I'm filming this, just before Halloween. I want to get a whole bunch of little parts. I want to see how well they stick so I can show you guys some tricks on things to stick to this. Alright, so I'll catch you for the next segment.